What up, you fine folks? Welcome on inside yet another edition of the Business of Social podcast powered by STN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. Each and every show, we talk to the experts. We get their expertise, advice on and insight on the ever-changing digital marketing and social landscape. This show is no different. Producer Will, episode number 68. I'm always excited to see who we will talk about, who will be the podcast here at 68.
Liam Neeson. Pierce Brosnan.
Wow, you just got right into it. There's no intro. You just start.
It's just all business today.
Wow.
Sharon Osbourne, Jeff Goldblum, Blum, David Hasselhoff, the Hoff, Dog the Bounty Hunter, Dan Aykroyd.
Blues Brother.
Yeah, 68, not great. Let me find one. Oh, Rick Moranis.
I thought you'd say Rick Mahorn. That's a random.
No, Rick Moranis.
All right, Will. Because you got right into business, I'm going to appreciate that. I'm going to let you pick this episode for the first time.
Oh, wow. I think you got to go Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
The guy does it all.
All right.
Yeah.
The Liam Neeson podcast right here on STN's podcast, which is Business Social. All right. So we are going to be talking to Crystal Ivey. She's currently the brand manager over at Diet Coke. I think she's spent about the last 5 years over at the Coca-Cola company. She's also been over at Procter & Gamble. I'm really excited, Will, because we haven't really talked to someone that has dealt with products at this level anyway. I know we've talked to during quarantine, we had a bunch of amazing panels with Pepsi and Papa John's and things like that. But to really go deep with one single brand and get into the ideas and the strategies behind launching a product on social and just overall marketing, I'm excited to dig in with Crystal.
Yeah, I was super excited when she accepted the invitation because, like you said, we haven't really gone into one brand's plan and and such a large brand that is to see everything that they're doing on so many different marketing levels.
I want to read this quote too because I'm a big Seth Godin guy too, and she has this on her LinkedIn as her mantra. Quote: "A brand is a set of expectations, memories, stories, and relationships that, taken together, account for a consumer's decision to choose one product over another," which is so beautiful. I want to talk about all those things and more with Crystal Ivey. She is, of course, the brand manager over at Diet Coke. All right, she has spent some time at Procter & Gamble, over at Coca-Cola as well, and she is an amazing brand marketer, innovative thinker, all those beautiful things. Crystal Ivey joins us on the Business Social podcast. Crystal, I'm so excited to drop some knowledge here for the fine folks. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, David. Yeah. I am excited to be here.
And I know we were introduced by the great Jessica Lane, formerly of TV One and Kellogg, but now she's over at Poppin' Creative. She's been on the show as well. So, I love it when good people introduce me to good people and vice versa, I'm sure. So,
yeah, she is an amazing woman. So an inspiration for sure.
Awesome. So why don't you give me a quick elevator pitch on your career thus far, taking us up. I know you've worked at Procter & Gamble, which I would love to get into. Coca-Cola, you're doing some really fun things currently as well. But walk me through just your career thus far and what really gets you going every morning.
Yes, most definitely. I most definitely will say the one thing that stands out for me is that I am truly a consumer-centric marketer. I love and appreciate the value of getting to those deep consumer insights. And interesting enough, the one thing that got me into that was the role that I had prior to business school. So I actually worked as a case manager for the Department of Family and Children's Services after undergrad. And being in that particular role, I got a chance to really interact with my families. And there were a lot of times where I would make assumptions about what their life may have been just because it was a different journey than mine. But once you got to see how resilient they were, how full of joy they were, it's had a lasting impact with me when I think about brand management for sure. And then, of course, after attending business school, I did move to Cincinnati. Worked on the Bounty paper towel business for Procter & Gamble for about 2.5 years.
Nice. I'm a Bounty purchaser still, so I don't know if you care, but that's
no, I do.
That's my brand of choice.
I actually still purchase Bounty.
Nice.
It's the most amazing paper towel. And one insight that I will say as someone who worked at P&G, when I say their R&D team is on it, every single claim they make, every single product they make, just being on the inside, I'm like, oh yeah, like it's the best of the best.
Okay, yeah, they're not lying. They're not putting the wool over our eyes. That's awesome.
At all.
Yeah.
But no, wonderful company. Got a chance to meet some wonderful people there, still connected to them. But Atlanta is my heart. I'm a native. We don't meet too many Atlanta natives. I think in the world here. But got a chance to come back to Atlanta and work for the Coca-Cola company, which is my dream company growing up.
Yep.
And got a chance to work on some wonderful brands there. And I'm headed to my next adventure soon. So excited to at least talk through some of the things that I've learned at Coca-Cola as well as the Procter & Gamble company.
Yeah, I love, especially on the product side, we talk so often to marketers that work on the consumer side, but when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to sports, trying to sell in the Super Bowl, things like that. But the actual product is so interesting, and specifically the products that you've worked on, where I guess I'll just jump right into it. Let's talk about the idea of marketing when it comes to a product like Coca-Cola or even Bounty, right? I feel like so much of it when it comes to social media, when it comes to online marketing, it really is that upper funnel marketing, that brand awareness, that trust factor, because you're hoping people go to the grocery store, they go to the gas station, the 7-Eleven, and say, you know what, I'm going to pick up this Diet Coke over the competitor. But I'd love to get your thoughts on, just where we're going right now, 2021, coming out of COVID. I have more thoughts on that, but the direct to consumer versus the upper funnel brand and all that stuff when it comes to social media. So how do you kind of attack that in 2021? Because I know it's changed quite a bit over the years.
No, that is a really good question. It's interesting, especially when you have products that essentially are number one in their category. So it's kind of like that awareness is there. You have that brand love, you have that brand loyalty. And I think that then gives you the ability to truly lean into your brand persona. When you think about social, you have that liberty to say, hey, we're number one in this category. How do we engage on a deeper connection with our consumers using social? How do we become like their best friend? How do we, and I think in addition to that, if I think about the next generation of consumers, how do we then use social to recruit that next generation of consumers where, we have the benefit of being in most consumers' households when they were growing up. And so we have that advantage, but now how do we take social and continue to say, hey, this wasn't just a brand that your mom used or your dad or your grandma used, but this is also a brand that's right for you. And social just gives us that ability to do that. And I think when a brand can really lean into their persona and come across authentically, they do a great job of that and building that for that consumer.
That's interesting because, when people, let's use Coke as an example, right? Like people literally say the word Coke for any type of carbonated sugary beverage, right? Like it's number one. I'm sure you guys have done this, but if you do a poll, you ask 1,000 random people on the street, all 1,000 people are going to know what Coca-Cola is. So it's a different type of marketing, right? Because you guys don't have to focus as much on brand education, on brand awareness, as much as, like you said, building that loyalty even further, and obviously new products and new ways to experience and enjoy the product, which is different because so many marketers are so gung-ho on obviously introducing like, hey, we exist. But with Coca-Cola, everybody knows they exist. So it's taken to a next level, I'm sure.
Yes, most definitely. I think essentially at that point, it's just more about who's the target consumer and how do we become ingrained in the values and morals that they have and stand for the same thing that they stand. How do we essentially become a voice for them because of our platform is larger than most. So how do we use this opportunity to become a voice for them so that we're always top of mind for them and we continue to be ingrained in their daily lives? Yeah,
absolutely. Don't get mad at me, but I have a friend over at Pepsi. She was on the podcast and she mentioned during COVID, you think obviously, sales would be down and it'd be tough, but people were hoarding their Diet Cokes and their Pepsis just as much as they were their toilet paper, it seemed like back during COVID. So did you guys see similar, just that really the brand loyalty, right? Like, hey, things may go south, but I'm going to make sure I'm stocked up on Diet Coke. Did you guys see a huge surge in that time as well?
We most definitely did. And I'm not sure if you guys, I'm probably closer to this because it's the industry, but on Diet Coke or the beverage industry in general, there was a can shortage. So aluminum cans. Wow. So whether you were at Pepsi, whether you were at Anheuser-Busch, the Coca-Cola company, there was just this shortage of cans because And the way I've thought about it is two reasons. One, you had people whose habits are changing. So now you have people who are working from home and therefore they need to consume their beverages at home. So they're stocking up more than they normally would from like an at-home usage.
That's a great point.
But then I think too, when you have something like a pandemic that most of us have not experienced in our lifetime, you kind of want that safety blanket. You want something that kind of reassures you that things are a bit normal. So when Diet Coke is your go-to, or, you know, Bounty paper towels or whatever the case may be, that's your comfort zone that makes you feel like, hey, in this chaotic world that we're currently living in, this is my tried and true. And it's that reassurance that I think some consumers were looking for when we kind of saw that boost as well.
That's a good point. Just the familiarity, or like the comfort, because there is definitely, when it comes to comfort food, comfort drinks, things like that. Walk me through. So I read a study about 3 or 4 years ago that 40% of Coke's revenue is non-bottled. So the syrups in restaurants and airports and 7-Eleven and things like that. I'm not sure if that figure is accurate anymore, but you know, that's a huge part of it. And then obviously COVID, all those things shut down essentially overnight. So how did your guys' shift like internally? I geek out over this stuff. So how did you guys shift internally, knowing that we can't count on this, but maybe there's a new area we can tap into? Or did it just kind of work out on its own because consumers' habits changed?
So what I will start off by saying and answering that question, I think first, if I think about internal personnel, our associates, because we are joint business partners with, you know, the Wendy's of the world, the airports, things that have our fountain product, most definitely went into that partnership way of thinking. So, hey, we know we're not getting the volume that we were expecting to get. How do we become partners even more in this time period to help you alleviate through some of the growing pains that they were working through? So that's what I 100%, one of the things I do like about Coca-Cola, the company, our associates, the partnerships that we have, just the ability to kind of lean in and be a joint partner there. If I think specifically about Coca-Cola Freestyle,
and what's an example of that? Like maybe shipping more bottles because they're doing more delivery orders. Like, I guess when you talk about extending the partnership, like what were some ways you guys did that?
So Coca-Cola Freestyle is one that came to mind in terms of, and so that's the dispenser that has 100 plus beverages that you can select.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's traditionally a touch screen dispenser. So one of the things that they worked on was like, hey, how do we leverage technology so that when people are coming back into the store to actually, or the restaurant to actually use the Coca-Cola Freestyle dispenser, they don't have to actually touch the screen.
Oh, wow.
But we can leverage technology on your phone through an app that enables you to pour in a safer environment. So that's one of the things that I thought was one of the things that I thought was good that we did in terms of like, how do we now think about ways in which we change our business? I think if you think about the bottle can side of the business, which I have a little bit more experience on, is that knowing that we had to kind of make up for some of that volume loss that was lost within our fountain business, we started to lean a lot on e-commerce. So that's a place that we traditionally don't always play in just because of our bottler format or business plan that we have. But essentially, like, how do we leverage our e-commerce platforms more? How do we lean into things like Instacart? Because we know that's how consumers are really starting to purchase now because of the safety of being at home and things of that nature. So I think we did a lot of great learnings, test and learns and executions when it came to e-commerce that I don't think if it hadn't been for the pandemic, we probably wouldn't have gotten there as fast.
Yeah. And I'm excited to dig into that because I really think when it comes to food products and beverages, even going to as far as direct to consumer subscriptions, right? Where if you can get your 24 pack of Diet Coke every Friday or whatever it is, or every other Friday, you don't have to go to the store. You don't have to worry about not being stocked up. I mean, obviously like the Whole Foods of the world and the Instacarts, like they've kind of been able to do that too, but you still have to manually go in there and say, hey, I want this and that. But when you talked about DTC, where do you think the future of that is? Like, are you guys currently doing that? And can you just go to Coca-Cola.com and say, hey, ship me this every 2 weeks and I don't have to think about it and I got my fix?
So in terms of Coca-Cola, that is a place where this is a year of continued learning. So again, I think 2021 most definitely taught us all the importance of it. When you think about the business model of Coca-Cola, ultimately all we sell is concentrate. Our bottlers are the ones that actually make the finished product, put it on shelves, and that type of
good point. Yeah,
and that type of distribution. So it's a little bit different for us in terms of the things that we have to navigate in order to truly have that direct to consumer. But what I will say is just leveraging for our bottlers. Again, Coke is just really great at those joint partnerships, but leveraging for our bottlers the importance of what that looks like. And that's why we were able to do things, for instance, through Instacart, because Instacart works with Publix and things of that nature. And so Publix, of course, gets stocked and fulfilled through our bottlers. But we wanted to make sure that we set up the marketing, the plans and the activations the right way so that bottlers would be able to benefit from those consumers who are now transitioning to that direct to consumer way of purchasing.
Yeah, I know we're kind of like getting, hopefully, right, on the other side of this pandemic, which is awesome. But how do you think consumer habits are going to change? Because the good news is, right, like, the restaurants are never going to go away. Like you're thirsty, you pull off for gas, you're going to hop in real quick and get a fresh fountain drink. That's always refreshing and great. But how do you think like consumer shopping habits have changed or are going to change in the future? Because so often it's like every week I'm going to the grocery store, I'm going to Vons or Rite Aid, whatever your grocery store of choice is. How do you think that changes in the future? Because I think so many people were introduced during this time on the easiness of delivery. And I think Amazon's helped a lot, where like the 2-hour deliveries and all these different things. So do you think that's going to change like the product game in a huge, huge way in the next like 2 to 5 years?
I most definitely think it will. I think the biggest thing is, and again, the pandemic just opened a lot of people's eyes to what was possible.
And what is convenient, right? That's always a big thing too. Yeah.
Correct. If you think about older consumers who may not have ever tested out direct to consumer or purchasing online, like now you have them into the fold and interested in, and they got a chance to see how seamless and easy it was.
Yes.
And I think you have those people who will continue to kind of be a part of this bandwagon of like direct to consumer. I also think, for instance, you may have had a family that was a hybrid in terms of I'll do, things that I know I'm planning for long term and get those more so from, direct to consumer and delivered. But things that I'm thinking about, I think it introduced them to kind of that 2-hour window way of ordering things. It's funny that you asked this question because I order my vitamins on Amazon. But today, for the first time that I've ever ordered them, it gave me the option to have them delivered within 2 hours from Whole Foods.
Oh, okay.
And so it was just kind of like, now that's an option that I think Amazon is even picking up on that hadn't been there. And again, this isn't the first time that I've ordered these vitamins, but it's kind of just honing in. And so that ability of like same day delivery, or again, just delivery that comes directly to you where you don't have to go out and venture to do those type of things.
And just wait till drone deliveries start happening. It's like, you know what? I feel like getting a new pair of pants for dinner this evening. Let me just click this button. Okay, I'll be here in 20 minutes. Like that's going to change the entire retail game as well, right? So
it will. And it's interesting now that you say that. Even another thing that I think is evolving is Uber bought Drizzly. So you just think about like Uber, which is like this transportation way of doing business, but then now you have them also doing Drizzly, which of course complements their Uber Eats. Yep. And then me even thinking full circle, when you think about what that then can look like when you start to think about safety in driving when people are consuming alcohol, just the full circle of how that then just comes together for Uber. So a lot of good changes coming, I think.
Yeah, I really like what you said here at the beginning, which is like number one in their vertical, right? So, how, I guess, can you walk me through maybe a campaign or two that you've personally done? And I know you guys do brand lift studies, and you can see even after a Super Bowl commercial if like there's spikes in a Diet Coke or what have you. But it still is somewhat difficult to ascertain exactly. I mean, Coke has so many campaigns going on like all the time, every day. It's difficult to know like which one really provided value and which one maybe you can take out of the cadence and you would still see no drop off. So any with these number one brands that already have pure brand awareness and brand education, like any campaigns in particular that you guys really saw like a huge change or just great ROI?
What I will say, particularly for Diet Coke, I'll talk about the initial campaign that Diet Coke did that I did not lead, but it also led to a campaign that I did lead in 2020 with everything going on. But in 2019, there was a campaign that Diet Coke did that was entitled Unlabeled. And it was going into a space that Diet Coke just had not gone into. And of course, there was a lot of skepticism in terms of if this was the right campaign for Diet Coke. Did Diet Coke have the right to play there, especially when you looked at the core consumer of Diet Coke, which tends to be older, white, affluent families. And so essentially the context of what Unlabeled was, it was living your life unapologetically. Because again, going back to what I mentioned in terms of recruiting that next generation of drinkers, and wanting to make sure that you have a place that stands within the things that they value and the morals that they stand for. And so with this Unlabeled program, again, a social program, we partner with festivals, things of that nature. So not anything that came through your traditional TVC or anything like that. But Unlabeled in 2019, again, work that was led by some great people on the team, was a test and learn for us. Like, how do we see if this is the type of message that will resonate with that next generation of consumers, but also not alienate our core consumer?
That's tough. That's a tough balancing act that everybody deals with. Yep.
Yes. So being able to pull that campaign off and just see the success behind it when you think about ROI, thinking about having those conversations, looking at, and then one thing that we really leaned on there was like our social metrics. So how did consumers interact with us from a social standpoint? Did we have a high number of positive versus negative interactions, things of that nature? And so we actually saw that our positive interactions were actually higher than the current benchmark of Diet Coke, and negative interactions actually were at par. So it was good to see that this was a space that we could own and play in, that kept us whole when you think about that next generation of consumers, as well as our loyal consumers. And again, that led to work that we were able to then do in 2020 around social justice and all Black Lives Matter. So I think it just set the stage for us to be able to do some big things.
That's awesome. Well, speaking of social, I would love to see how you attack it. Again, being both, P&G and also Coca-Cola, but like how you use social, because again, when you have all that brand awareness already kind of baked into it, how do you overall, like, what's your thoughts on how to leverage social? You talked a little bit earlier about just creating a deeper connection with your core demo, but when you guys either are going into a Instagram strategy or thinking about launching a new platform like a TikTok or what have you, what's kind of the overall mission from a Coca-Cola usually?
Most definitely will say, especially when we think about new products, awareness is always the big thing there. So making sure that we're using our platforms to build that awareness behind the new innovation that we're working on. I will say that most definitely, I think an important piece of that is, as we're building out our marketing plan, is just making sure that we engage and involve social as quickly and as soon as possible, and not treat it as an afterthought. Just because there's so much power in what social can bring for us. Even if I think about PR campaigns or activations that I've done for Diet Coke, social has literally played a big role in those activations, because we just know the importance of getting your fans behind you and getting that support, and leaning on influencers like platforms as well. So it just plays that big of a role, again, getting them in early.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. So I always think of like Supreme, right? I think Supreme had little to no advertising, but they partnered with celebrities and influencers, and all of a sudden it became like the hottest brand overnight type thing. So yeah, how have you guys utilized influencers? Do you usually tap into them when you have those new products, in particular for that overall brand awareness? Is that also helpful when you're trying to get younger and tap in? I'm assuming all of the above, but how has influencers worked really well for you guys?
I would say, if I think about the things that we've done on Diet Coke, most definitely has been for our PR activations more so than anything else. And I think that's because it allows for it to come through very genuinely. If you think about the Unlabeled program that I just walked you guys through, we leaned into influencers that weren't your grade A or top rated influencer as they would be defined. I think they were wonderful. So that's not me saying that about them, but we lean into influencers that were very relevant. We look more for you to have relevance to what it is that we're trying to what it is that we're trying to communicate as a brand. So I believe the influencers that we used were very authentic, very genuine, in the sense of relevance. And even if I think about the activation that I led last year as a continuation of that, which was around All Black Lives Matters, we were able to partner with, and his name just slipped my mind that quickly, Alex Bull.
Yeah.
In terms of, and again, those are just partnerships that we choose based on relevance and their authenticity versus you being a grade A or top tier celebrity, because we want to come through and resonate with that consumer that can easily see through anything that's not authentic or genuine.
Yeah. One thing that we always kind of preach with all of our clients is using your distribution that you have at your disposal. First and foremost, I think a lot of marketers think of influencers and paid media, but I mean, Coca-Cola, I mean, Minute Maid and Dasani and Powerade and Smart Water and Honest Tea. Have there been situations where I know there's different demos and maybe the Diet Coke audience doesn't connect with the Minute Maid, or maybe it does, but have you guys been able to tap into just like your owned and operated brands to extend reach or extend distribution, almost not in a free way, but you know what I mean? Like being able to just utilize the brands that you have underneath your umbrella to just get more reach and distribution. Can
you ask that question again? I want to make sure that I'm understanding.
Okay, cool. Let me say it a different way. So one thing we really talk to our clients a lot about is being able to use the different brands underneath the umbrella brand's umbrella, right? So I'm just thinking of Coca-Cola, right? You have Coca-Cola, Dasani, Smart Water, Honest Tea, Minute Maid, all these different brands that live under the overall parent company. Are there situations where a Diet Coke can team up with a Sprite or an Honest Tea or Fuse Tea just to get more reach and distribution for a campaign? Because like you guys already own that brand, so it is cool to be able to tap into it if you can and if the demo makes sense.
No, okay, most definitely. Most definitely. There are times I will say specifically, and again, I wasn't working on this brand, but I know we introduced literally last year at the peak of the pandemic, a sparkling water, AHA. And so essentially what we got a chance to do with our distribution that we have with Coca-Cola, and even if you think about even bigger than distribution, but once you get in store and you think about placement outside of the aisle, we just had the opportunity to take that brand and partner it with Coca-Cola. So that way we got that distribution not only within store, but then also outside of aisle. So if you think about perimeter displays, front and lobby displays, those are places where that brand on their own, without the backing of the Coca-Cola company, would not have been able to get that type of distribution or that type of display. I think also when you think about Diet Coke, one of the things that we were working on recently, again, another great person on the team, is a partnership with Fresca. So Fresca is a brand that actually does do really, really well in terms of over-indexing with Diet Coke. So how do we build out this shoppable program that we then can offer initially with, areas within the United States where it's relevant, but then when you get those results back and you can see how successful it is, you get that ability to then buy it in into other areas within the country. So you do have that ability to lean on the name of the Coca-Cola company. Awesome. For sure.
This is kind of like I don't know, I kind of geek out over this when it comes to marketing overall. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. Brands or companies decide to go one of two different ways, I think. ESPN will go ESPN, ESPN2, ESPN3, ESPNU, and they'll leverage the brand loyalty and the brand awareness to continue to have different things. Coca-Cola could have done the same thing. Coca-Cola, Diet Coke, Orange Coke. You can continue to, leverage the brand. But I think most consumers have no idea that Coca-Cola owns Smart Water, has no idea that Minute Maid is under Coca-Cola. So I would just love to get your thoughts on, maybe not from a Coca-Cola perspective, but from a marketer, how do you determine when to spin off a brand new brand that doesn't have any ties necessarily to the more established brand, or when you decide to leverage the brand and make sure you tap into that? I would just love to hear your thoughts on that.
No, that's a good question. I think it most definitely depends on the strategy that the company is going for. If you have these products that have similar attributes and propositions, I think it most definitely makes sense to leverage that parent company name to say, hey, ESPN, ESPN2, because these products all deliver similar things in nature. And so you get a chance to create something new, but then get to forego to it from a certain extent, the ability to have to build the awareness and build the trust. You can kind of lean into that parent name and company.
Right.
But I do think when you're introducing a brand that will have a different proposition than what your parent brand offers, and something that may even seem like a contradiction, then it does make sense to treat that.
Sprite is a perfect example. I mean, because it's going after a more younger, youthful audience, and it's kind of more the cooler brand compared to maybe what your mom and dad drink, maybe the Coke or Diet Coke. That's like a perfect example, I think.
And I think even from like a formulation standpoint, you have Sprite, which is this clear lemon lime soda, which is very different and offers something very different than what you find with a Coca-Cola, which is a, dark colored cola beverage, flavored beverage.
And I get it too. Like, when you purchase vitamin water and that already has a built-in loyalty, a built-in audience, like there's no need to then change that. But I do think a lot of, even at the large level, like, we just saw Discovery merge with Warner Media, and now they're calling it Warner Brothers Discovery. Like, why not just keep those brands separate? I think sometimes you try to merge them too much. Like, just keep Warner Bros. Over here and keep Discovery over there, and you're all good. But people, I think it's two sides of the fence. Either people like to really conglomerize and make everything the same brand, or they like to market different brands based on different demos, which I think is smart at the end of the day. How do you guys approach new platforms? And I'm assuming, like you said, with your demo, a little older, like skewing more white and like affluent, like you said. So when like a TikTok comes out, is that a goal to like, let's try to hit a younger audience and see if we can really tap into this? Like, how do you guys approach this when new platforms come out, whether you guys want to, leverage that?
I will say most definitely, I think Coke will probably play on the safer side of new platforms and new innovation that comes through. I think if I just even go off the last question that you just asked me in terms of the different and wider range of beverages that we offer, I think a good thing that we are able to do there with our beverages is we can take a brand like Sprite, who made test and learn.
And it makes so much sense on TikTok, that brand. Yep.
Yes. So like leveraging Sprite to test and learn through TikTok or things of that nature, because they have the right to play there. And once we kind of see and learn what they do and it's shared across the board, we can then say, okay, like this is how Diet Coke should show up, or this is how Smart Water should show up. If we go back to the heyday, like Facebook, maybe there's a brand that has a right to try out new platforms and features on Facebook. And then we take that learning. So I think that's also just another advantage of having these multiple brands that speak to different people in different categories and things of that nature. So we can test and learn and share that across the board.
I think it's so interesting the time that we're going through right now, because I think you could make an argument as a society, we've never had this conversation at this level when it comes to race and equality. We had 50 states and 18 countries march for Black Lives Matter. That's never happened in the history of the planet. Like we're definitely you don't know that you're in history necessarily when you're in the middle of it, but it's definitely historic what's happening. And I've asked a lot of marketers this question: where do brands fit into that? And when do they need to make a stand? Especially, we were talking earlier before the program, when you have Black consumers that you so rely on for your bottom line, what is it for the brand to show up for their consumers and then make sure they're making a difference? Like, how do you attack that as a marketer, not only for Coke, but just overall?
Most definitely. I think I'm going to start with the top of the funnel. I think what companies need to make sure that they're doing, if they have not already, is just understanding that the importance of diversity and inclusion on your team. As you hire associates and bring people in at all levels, not just, the entry levels, as you promote and things of that nature, like this, if last year taught you nothing else, it should teach you the importance of having that diversity and inclusion within your company. So that when moments like this come up, you're not scrambling to determine how should I respond? What should I do?
Great point.
How do I determine if this is the right way to activate? You already have it there within your company. So that's going to be my first PSA just on that. But secondly, I think you also just have to recognize and be aware of your business and your consumer target market. I think when you are an expert on your business and you are aware of the impact that I can't think of many industries or categories where a Black consumer would not be important, but having that understanding and that importance of like what this consumer is doing for you most definitely continues to let you know the importance of taking a stand in these conversations. And then two, the next thing I'll say is find the right way to activate and know that not everyone will be happy. Yes. And it's okay as long as you're living in your brand persona. So specifically Diet Coke, we decided to be a part of that conversation. And the initiative that I led there, we had to be honest with ourselves, like, can we go in and with a Black Lives Matter message? And that honestly wasn't the right way for us to go in from Diet Coke. But what we do know is that when we look at social media, we do over-index within the LGBTQ plus community. So that gave us the opportunity to say, okay, we have the right to play within all Black Lives Matter. So this is a way we can come through authentically, be genuine, but still be a part of a conversation that's important to us because we know the importance of our Black consumer within our product. So
that makes total sense. Yeah, I think it's difficult. I think we're getting to a point now, especially Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd incident, anti-Asian hate, COVID, all these like difficult things brands had to navigate. But it's like, even for my company, I don't want to just make a statement each time. Like, we stand against this anti-hate, but I think the way to approach it is if your culture is that of equality, is that of acceptance, is that of like, treat others how you want to be treated, then you necessarily don't have to make a statement every single time something happens, right? So that idea, if internally your brand kind of speaks of that, then your consumers already know, like, they got my back, they understand, rather than saying nothing and just only talking when these incidents happen, right?
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
I hope that the one thing that businesses walk away with is the ability for this to be a sustaining piece of how they do business. I think the first two companies that come to mind when I think about that is P&G, with the initiatives that they have taken well before 2020, as well as Ben and Jerry ice cream.
Yes.
That have been a part of these conversations well before 2020.
And I think NBC Sports has donated like $100 million over 10 years. Like, made a statement they want to be 50%, people of color, 50%. So it's amazing how these large sums and like these big statements were made because of all this. So.
Agree. I hope they stand through it once the dust settles.
1,000%. I agree. That being said, I know we talked a little bit about COVID right there. Any major takeaways for you? Not so much on the brand side, but just as a leader, as a professional, as a marketer, things are really changing in a big way. But I'd love to hear, I love to say the silver lining. Like, it's all about perspective, right? So it was a tough year for all of us. I can't believe what we went through. But what did you learn as a professional, as a leader during that time?
Most definitely. I would say three things. Two are as a professional. One is personally. Two things is, and I'm sure everybody took this away, is we can work remotely. Like, we were able to pull it off. It worked exceptionally well. So I would say as we get back to a sense of normalcy.
But the Coca-Cola campus is pretty nice. I mean, I've been on campus, so maybe twice a week in the office and three, anyways.
No, it is a very nice campus. But I would say as we get back to what our new normal looks like, I would encourage companies to normalize like a hybrid work option. 100%. Because we know we can pull it off. We know we can work. We know that they are still capable of getting work done, even if they're not in the office, being productive. So most definitely. I think the second thing that was a big learning as well is we are capable of pivoting and getting things into market pretty quickly.
Every company was stress test to the max, which if you can make it out of that, then you feel pretty confident about anything that'll hit you, which I love.
Exactly. I don't know too many companies that when the shutdown started that didn't have to go back and rejigger business plans, whether 100%. You benefited from like the pandemic or, you saw a decline in sales. You had to pivot, and we did it quickly. So I just hope as we move forward and think about being proactive and just being agile with getting things in market, we continue to lean on our ability to do that.
Love that.
And then lastly, from a personal standpoint, what I will say is surviving the pandemic and social justice and things of that nature teaches us that there is so much more to life. And I just hope that everybody walks away, one, just being grateful and appreciative of where we are in our lives personally, but then also taking the time that they need to kind of enjoy things outside of work, to get that mental rest that they need, to go on that vacation that they wanted to go on, to spend time with family that, you know, sometimes kind of has to be on the back burner. So I would say from a personal standpoint, that'd be the thing that I would most definitely say I hope people kind of stick to and continue.
And I'll add on top of that as a leader myself. I think what I'm kind of bracing for, and I think I know you lead a big team and you would as well, the post-pandemic era, you know, anxiety and depression is up 400%. Divorces are up 39%. All these different things that people have dealt with. And even to a certain extent, like I'm watching the NBA playoffs and every game someone's throwing a water bottle or running on the court. Like a lot of people that was tough, right? It's a tough like 15-minute stretch and they're not really thinking straight and they're going through a mix of emotions, and not to excuse any behavior by any stretch. But I think when it comes to our employees, our staff, our employees' families, and how that kind of got affected with the election and the Capitol uprising and how that kind of divided a lot of people. I think that'll be something we'll struggle with or have to deal with and sit with for the next 5 years or so. That's going to be the unfortunate part of all this. I think just people trying to get right and get back to normal. I think it's important for all leaders to understand about their teams too.
100% agree. Yeah. Just giving that grace.
Yeah, I disagree. When you said mental health, I'm like, that kind of is exactly what I was talking about too. Okay, I know I got to get you out of here. I'm going to do a few rapid fire questions if you're up for it. Are there any brands or accounts outside of course, the ones you've worked with that you enjoy following, Instagram, Twitters, any creators that you just like really enjoy and get a kick out what they're doing?
There are some that I follow. The first one I'll talk about is Real Talk Tasha.
Okay.
She's a great career account. I actually lean on her a lot when I think about, and our paths crossed at P&G. So, and
nice.
she's still there, but love to follow her account because she has really great career advice. She also, especially with everything going on last year, has been able to use her platform to be an inclusion consultant for companies. So most definitely worthwhile to kind of like follow her and just kind of keep a pulse on everything from career to inclusion for sure. Mm-hmm. Another account that I follow is Marty Woodward. So He is based out of Atlanta. He's had a great career within marketing with some great companies as well. But now his account actually helps people, especially entrepreneurs who are looking to understand social marketing strategy. So a great account to follow, lots of good advice. I'm a fan of it because I think a lot of times when you kind of lean into what entrepreneurs are doing, even when you work in the corporate environment, you kind of are able to stay on top of things and keep a pulse of trends that are coming. And then the last thing I would say, again, just going into that mental health space and kind of like personal encouragement, there's a site called or an account called Courageous Fruit. So again, just teaching people to kind of have that personal inspiration to lean into the things that are important to them and to live purpose-driven lives. So that's kind of what I follow. I like to keep it either things that help me for my career, that help me for corporate America, or most definitely are an inspiration.
I'd love to ask you, like I say, FOMO is such a big thing in our industry and things move so quickly, but any books or podcasts or newsletters that you like to listen to just to make sure you stay on the up and up?
Yes. So I have an array of podcasts that I listen to. Again, a lot of things to see are within the career or marketing realm, but I most definitely read the Ad Age email. So they'll send you a daily email in the morning to kind of keep you up to speed on things that are going on. So I read those podcasts. I would say Side Hustle. Again, I am into learning what entrepreneurs are doing because I think it helps from a corporate standpoint. Marketing Misfits is another one. Brand Builder, again, that's another one because it's starting a company from the bottom and building it up. And then from a career management standpoint, there's a podcast called Trill MBA Show, the career management podcast for Black women. So again, just as I navigate my career, those are things that are super important to me. And in terms of books, there are books that I will read over and over again. I'm getting ready to read How to Influence. It's like how to win friends and influence people. And then I have a leader from P&G who his name is Scott Mouse, but he just created a book called Leading from the Middle that I think is going to be really great because if you think about middle management, so you have people that report to you, but you're also not the big man on the totem pole. How do you navigate that? So that's a book that's on my reading list for June.
That's awesome. Look at you, just continuing your self-development, personal development, all those things. What are some tools or resources or any apps that you just couldn't live without or make your life easier, especially dealing with, these huge brands? I'm just curious if anybody can get some knowledge on some stuff that made your life easier with all the thousands of initiatives I'm sure that happen over at Coke.
It is so interesting. There is not like a specific app that I use when I think about my career. I think one of the resources and tools that I most definitely will kind of bring light to, and it goes back to one of the things I said earlier, is around mental health. I just think it's more important than ever to kind of take that time to set aside and make sure you're using tools and resources for that. I know now a lot of companies will provide resources for you to do it through your company. You can find someone on your own. But essentially, I just think taking time to see a therapist, or if you want to download an app that lets you kind of have like that down mental space for a couple of minutes, most definitely do those things. But I think at the end of the day, we are all juggling so much. We're capable of achieving anything we want to achieve. We already have everything that it takes, but sometimes we just have to kind of reset and make sure that we take those mental breaks and spend time doing that.
Well, I think it's important too, like rating yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 and rating your team. Like, where are you at mentally, emotionally, and physically? Because you can, your mental health can be at a 2 out of 10, but maybe your physical is 10 out of 10. You feel great, but you're just like, but for whatever reason, you're not on it. And I think that assessment, people always talk about physically, they're not sick or they're not ill, but you also could be extremely drained. So I love how you're speaking on that. We always ask this question towards the end, but anybody in your network, we of course asked the great Jessica Lane, and now we got Crystal Ivey. So I got to ask you the same question. Anybody in your network you think would be awesome to speak with and just be able to share some knowledge for the listeners?
That is a good question. I honestly, if there's anybody in my network, I would say Camille Irving. Mm-hmm. She is a boss at Uber. Doing some great things. What I love about her career is that she started in marketing and brand with us at P&G, but she's now transitioned to a more strategic pricing role. And so I think it'll be super interesting to hear her talk about how essentially it all plays an important role when you think about brand plus the strategy of doing things. And then being at a company like a tried and true like P&G, and then transitioning to an Uber startup tech industry. So She will have a lot of valuable information for sure.
That's awesome. All right, my final question to you, and we'll wrap it up here. Any advice? I mean, you talked about Coca-Cola was your dream company in Atlanta, and kudos to you for making that happen and having that be a great resume builder and all those things. But any marketers coming out of school or trying to be where you are one day, like any advice that you have for them?
Of course, the first thing I'll say is most definitely believe in yourself. You have everything it takes. So
confidence is big.
Exactly. So don't overanalyze it. And then with that piece of confidence, also know that you're not perfect. So you're not going to always get it right. Give yourself grace. It's okay. The second thing I would say is, especially if you're still in school right now, network as much as you can, because the more people you know, the more relationships that you build, that kind of gives you what you need to get where you want to be, because you can't get there on your own. It all takes the ability to have people who have gone through things to teach you and raise you up to the place that you want to be. So keep going, reach out and build those networks, and know that you will achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve.
Awesome. I love the positivity. Ended on that note. Can't follow that up any better. All right. So once again, Crystal Ivey, thank you so much for taking the time. And like I said, just breaking down your wisdom, and congrats so far in your career so far. And I know you'll be doing some big things coming up. So exciting stuff.
Yes. Thank you so much, David. This has been great.
Thanks, Crystal.
Bye.
All right. All right, there was Crystal. Thanks so much, Crystal, for joining us on the program. I know you guys and gals got a lot of value from that show. I love how we went into the mental health of teams, and also what they did during last year, and really speaking to the Black consumer and all those different things that we kind of got into. A very well-rounded show, Will, with product marketing at its finest.
Yeah, all credit to Jess Lane. Thank you so much for making the connection.
The question is, does Will use Bounty as his paper towel of choice?
Oh, yeah, the quicker picker up.
Of course. All right, so we appreciate you so much, as we always do. We want to thank Dave Ferker. How about Justine? Justine coming in for a quick quick help out here? Maybe some training. How's the training going, Will? If you get hit by a bus, like you always say.
Justine. If I get hit by a bus, that would be tough, but I think the pod would be in good hands.
I want to add some context. So every time Will says he wants to train somebody, it's always, if I get hit by a bus or I get hit by a car, it's always very violent. And I said, Will, maybe you're sick. Maybe you're on vacation.
Flair for the
Let's be
dramatic,
positive.
Maybe, yeah. But yeah, pod's in good hands.
All right. Thanks to Justine, Will, of course, Dave Furker for all the help on this setup. This has been yet another edition of the Business Social Podcast. My name is David Brickley. It's all been powered by STN Digital.